A very warm good evening to all of you. I apologize for the late for starting the webinar a bit late due to some technical glitches we were facing. So, anyways, welcome to the 143rd session of Centa's webinar series for teachers. I hope all of you are keeping safe and staying healthy. The topic for today's webinar is creating lesson plans for student-centric classes. And the facilitator for this session is Miss Meenakshi Mishra. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. Meenakshi ma'am is an accomplished educationist with an experience of around 14 years in various educational institutions. She has conducted many trainings on various education based topics to facilitate teachers in the organization. Currently, she is working as a vice principal in Podar International School located at Amravati, Maharashtra. Welcome to you, ma'am. Before I hand over the session, I
Thank
would like
you.
to inform all the teachers that they will receive participation certificates for the session. So please do fill out the feedback form that will be shared with you towards the end of the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Harsha. Thank you for the introduction. Dear viewers, I'll be taking you across the topic lesson planning for student-centric classes. Now, something that we have been in touch for the past years and more so now in the recent future has been the conduction of student-centric classes. So it's not something that has come up all of a sudden in a day or two, but it has been in practice for the past several years. Now, student-centric classes, when we talk about it and when we go ahead in schools, mostly there's a misconception among teachers that student-centric means that the teacher involves the students in the process, in the class, and somewhere the students get an opportunity to participate in the class. Now, that happens to be quite a misconception as far as my understanding goes. Now, what should be done is right from the beginning, right from the onset, the students not only need to be involved with the learning process, but rather they should be made a part of the teaching process as well. So, when we talk about student-centric, what we mean is more focus on personalized learning, giving autonomy to students so that they decide as to what to learn and what is their chosen level of learning. That is what makes a class more student centric. If we take an example on a day-to-day basis, what generally happens is teachers, they teach their content, and when the content is taught, they do give opportunity to the students to answer a few of the questions. And then we ask that was your class student centric, more or less the answer comes is yes, we asked the students to answer questions and that made my class more student centric. Now that, my friends, according to me, is not a to the point involvement of making a class student centric. What happens is the students' participation should also be in the teaching process. So today we are going to take you on a step-by-step journey how you can pre-plan and how you in the pre-planning process itself you ensure that your class becomes a totally student-centric class. Now for this, we need to understand first the basic concept of student-centric, which I've already told you, is the giving autonomy or more independence to the learners rather than to the teachers in the class. And then comes in the pre-planning part. Why do we need to pre-plan? Now, mostly teachers say that we have been teaching for the past 15 odd years or 20 odd years, and we don't need to pre-plan since we are doing this on a regular basis. I have been a teacher for the past 10 years and I have been dealing with the same classes. So why do I need to go ahead and pre-plan? What happens is when you have been doing the same thing regularly for the past 15 or 20 odd years, after a set period of time, what happens? You develop a pattern. So you start working on the same pattern again and again and again and again, and instead of doing something innovative or something new, you are bound by that pattern mostly unknowingly. It is not that it is done knowingly, but mostly this happens unknowingly. And after a period of time, because of this pattern, what happens? The class becomes more redundant, more monotonous instead of being more student centric. So after a period of time, students start losing interest in what you have been teaching or what you are going through. So there comes in the need for pre-planning, and pre-planning must be done every single day. So every single day you need to pre-plan for your lessons. Now, student-centric pre-planning also happens to bring you at par with the new national education policy. What happens? What NEP suggests or national education policy suggests more towards competency-based learning, skill-based learning, learning by doing kind of things, and this can be incorporated in student-centric pre-planning only. So this happens when you pre-plan for student-centric classes. It also somewhere incorporates the skill-based, the competency-based learning as a part of the teaching process. So this brings you at par with the national education policy as well. Apart from this, student-centric planning for student-centric lessons, what happens? It also incorporates the various teaching methods or models that are generally followed. Naming a few of them, we have the 5E teaching method, in which there are 5 E's like explore, evaluate, then engage, all those models which are very well known to all of us. So if we pre-plan for student-centric lessons, keeping all of these things in view, then we are able to, or we shall be able to make a more student-centric planning. Now, on this ground, I would like to ask a question to all our attendees. What are the basic problems you face when you are making a lesson plan, and how much time do you devote to making the lesson plan more student centric? Now, Harsha, if you could take some comments on it and come back to me on that one.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Harsha.
No problem, ma'am. Uh, they say engage, explore, explain, elaborate,
Yeah,
evaluate. One of
yeah,
the
yeah.
Rajini ma'am. Yeah.
Right. That is the 5 E's. So that is one method in which teaching takes place, or pre-planning can take place. It's an instructional method. Yes. Thank you, Rajni. Yes.
Sakshi ma'am says activities for senior classes in English.
Right. Absolutely. Activity-based lesson planning can be conducted. What else?
Covering syllabus completely within stipulated time.
Right. Right.
Time
Absolutely. That
constraints.
happens to be a main. Right.
Yeah. Time
That
constraints, ma'am.
happens to be right. So according to my knowledge, I will certainly try to clarify all of these problems which do come in from time to time. So talking about the first problem in creating a student centric class, we encounter the first problem that happens to be the time management issue. So what happens with student centric classes is uh, teachers are not able to manage it within the stipulated time of 40 or 45 minutes. For this, the solution that can be taken is you can divide your class into slots. Say for a 40-minute class, the first 7 minutes can be given for lesson opening. Now, how do you make the lesson opening more student centric? Mostly what happens, generally we start with a recap of our prior lessons. So that can be done by taking the help of students, delegating them tasks as to come up and recap or sum up what was taught in the last class, or you can conduct an activity which sums up the learning of the last class as well as acts as a great opener and ensures maximum student engagement right in the beginning of the lesson, making your class more student centric. But the time slot happens to be the first 7 minutes in a 45-40 minute session, not more than that. Then moving on to the next part, which happens to be the explanation part. All of us on a day-to-day basis need to explain content to our students. So the next 10 minutes can be given for explanation of content. wherein you can take students' help and give them, delegate them the task to frame up or come up with resources created by the students, and go ahead with the explanation part by some kind of collaborative teaching techniques, or some kind of research or project based techniques wherein students present the project in the class, and then also the content to be taught gets explained in the same time frame. Now, after these two, it becomes a little bit monotonous for the children. So, making it more interesting, you can go ahead with a short activity based part, wherein you have the reinforcement of the learning by the students. So, to reinforce, again, you can introduce some kind of activity, some kind of quiz, some other gamification method over here, so that again for the next 10 minutes you have students actively involved in doing the same thing. Now, the next 7 minutes can be kept for, especially for the evaluation or the assessment part of things, wherein students assess, their learnings are assessed. Herein you can have peer correction methods, or quizzes or game again in the class. So it's more activity based, wherein you are getting results from the students as to what they have learned and what they are doing till now. The last minutes can be dedicated to planning for the next day. Now, herein, this is a slot wise division for a 40-minute session, wherein teachers need to follow certain things that they need to keep in mind. Is, apart from time management, the next issue that occurs in a student centric class is things getting out of hand. All of a sudden something occurs, some child goes somewhere, or some children take more time than the stipulated time that you had planned for. So herein the teacher needs to be very strict, and explicit instructions need to be conveyed to the students right at the beginning of lesson as to what are the rules that need to be followed, and what is the time frame that the teacher has set. So even lesson planning needs to be prepared with the contribution of the students, so that they know that yes, this particular task or lesson opening is for 7 minutes only, and it is not to be exceeded in that time frame. Now, if you're conducting an activity for the first 7 minutes, the same task can be delegated to the students for conduction of activity. They take ownership for what they are doing. So giving ownership to students acts as a great booster in a student centric class. What happens is children feel responsible, and then it is more time bound when you give them ownership for it. And the role of the teacher then becomes being the facilitator of the class rather than taking all the responsibility or leading the class. And the class also becomes more student centric in the process. Secondly, what you can do is you can also, the explanation part, as I explained earlier, can also be delegated to students in general. And prior planning will help you a lot with student centric classes, because when the task delegation is done a day prior to the students frame out the task that needs to be done on the next day. So they are the ones who decide how much of the portion is going to get completed. You can obviously nudge them in a direction wherein you can have your own syllabus completed in the set time frame by the students, preparing resources and then presenting them in the class. So more and more ownership will be given to students in general, so that they take up the responsibility, and then they are able to run the show as it is. So this, I hope it will solve a lot of problems wherein planning it takes place, and pre-planning needs to be done. So the last 2 to 3 minutes are always to be kept at hand for planning of the next lesson in the class. So I would like to ask a question here is, how and when do the teachers plan their lessons? What time do they plan the lessons to be conducted on the next day, and how much time do they provide to lesson planning in general? So Harsha, if we could have some comments or answers on
Sure,
that.
ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. They say after school gets over,
Right,
then Kriti ma'am says evening time. Anjana ma'am says a
right,
day before. Shikha
right,
Bedi ma'am says 1 hour. Then Janat
right,
says weekly plans generally done on Sundays. Lesson plan
right,
is done
right,
once in 15 days. Then Viji ma'am says a
right,
week in advance. 1 day prior,
right,
Priyanka ma'am says. Then Isha ma'am says
right,
30 minutes during department meeting. When
right.
Vinita ma'am says
Thank you.
weekly. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for all those beautiful, wonderful comments. Now, what we see is mostly teachers do the pre-planning outside their classes. It's an independent work or a group work between teachers. So students are nowhere involved in the process of pre-planning. Now that, according to my opinion, needs to change. So if pre-planning is done in the class along with the students and they contribute in the process of pre-planning, it is most certain it will change the way of looking at a lesson from the point of view of the student as well. So they when they decide what is going to get taught, obviously the interest level is peaked, more and more participation and engagement of lesson is more. So students then play a more active part in the running of the class and the class becomes more student centric. So that can be done with the planning of the lesson. So I would implore everybody to at least give the last 3 minutes and plan lesson in a running class itself. So what happens is when a teacher plans a lesson outside a class, so suppose a teacher is teaching English and suppose she is teaching English in two different sections of the same grade. What happens, what she does is she plans the same lesson plan running for both the classes. Now, when you look at different sections, she might be teaching in two different sections. The teacher may be the same, but the students are different. The learning abilities are different. Their involvement is different. Their ability to understand is different. So it is not student centric lesson planning then. Then the planning is all teacher centric because the teacher has done all the planning before coming to the class and she has prepared plan according to her own abilities rather than the abilities of the student in the class. What needs to be done here now is the teacher needs to plan for lessons wherein students play a more active part in the planning process rather than the students playing a more active part in just the receiving part of the lesson. So if we want our lesson to be more student centric, that is what I was getting at right from the beginning of the topic. The only thing that can be done is building of basics right from the beginning. So what can be done is the student should be involved in the planning of the lesson rather than in the class itself. So when the child is aware as to what is going to happen tomorrow in my class and I have helped plan a lesson, obviously he or she will be more participative in the class and react more in the class, making it really a student centric class instead of making it more teacher centric. So I would implore all my fellow educators to go ahead and start planning lessons in the class itself rather than planning it at home or after the class. So pre-planning also needs, for a student-centric class, needs to be done in a classroom only, not outside a classroom. So I would like to take a feedback on this. How many teachers feel that they'll be able to pre-plan for a lesson in a running class? Can we have feedback on that, Harsha? If we can have that.
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. They say Sanjeev Kumar says perfectly right.
Right.
We prepare LPs monthly, discussion daily.
Right.
It happens, it seems, ma'am. One of the teachers says. Rajini ma'am
Right.
says due to time limit, they cannot plan. They are not able to plan.
Lessons
Yeah,
in the
for a
classes.
yeah, in the class.
Right,
And
right,
few of
right.
them
But
say
that
it
can,
is difficult. Yeah, and they will try it, ma'am.
yeah,
Yes, it is
yeah,
possible. They
certainly.
will.
I would, right. It is possible, my friends, if we get it done. It's just about a matter of practice and getting things to the level of students, making them understand. And when you give them more and more ownership of the lesson, obviously they do a much better work, and they will contribute in ways and means which the teacher cannot even imagine. And when a class is student centric, the level of understanding is also of the student. So a teacher's understanding and a student's understanding or perception is obviously very different. So when a student is there in a class and he or she is putting in an input or sharing a resource or sharing his or her feedback, then it appeals to the individual level of student, and each and every student in the class is able to connect to what a child is saying. And also, if a child is there, then the real life examples which are given by students are more relatable and age appropriate and grade appropriate for each and every child in the class as well. So these are some of the things that can be worked on regularly to make your class more and more student centric. Give more opportunities to students right in the beginning. It has to, and this is not a thing that can happen overnight. We cannot say that starting tomorrow I'm going to make my class student centric, so let me go ahead and do that. Herein you need to understand that it's a process. Slowly you need to develop it as a culture in the class. Wherein I would like to quote Alfie Kohn that what matters is not what we teach, but it's what they learn. And the probability of real learning is far higher when the students have a lot to say about both the content and the process as well. So Alfie Kohn has correctly said that this needs to come, and students need to choose of how they can learn, what they can learn, what is the material that they are giving, and here foundational needs are also met. When the teacher comes in a class, more or less the teacher understands that yes, some things are already understood by the students. But when a class is more autonomous, more autonomy is given to the students, then obviously students connect more to the child in the class. Students also open more, they ask more open and more questions to the other student. You can involve children in the process also by asking open-ended questions in your set induction. And as they say, knowledge is power, and knowledge shared is power multiplied. So let us multiply that power that is there in the class. Student-centric lessons enhance engagement. They foster better memorization for children, because when they prepare their own resources and come forward and deliver those resources, obviously the memorization is much more in them. You can train them on problem solving, critical thinking skills. More research is done by the children, and also it leads to further learning, because when one child comes and presents something, somewhere he also acts as an example for many others, and then others also go ahead and then they obviously participate more and open up. And then over a period of time, say if you continuously try to do this on a slot basis, then after a period of 3 months you should have more than 50% student centric class. And as they say, time changes everything. That's what people say. It's not true. Doing things changes things, and not doing things leave things as they are. So let us change things, let us bring about changes, so that this is all done properly. Now I'll take you very quickly to a pre-planning part, and I obviously had prepared something, so I'll just try to reconnect if I can. Harsha?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, Harsha, can I just talk to you for a moment?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll just try to reconnect with my laptop, and then I'll be sharing a PPT. Is that possible?
Yes, ma'am. You can be on live on here. You can connect that one also,
Yeah,
ma'am. Yeah.
right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Harsha.
Yeah.
So, pre-planning of lesson, I just wanted to share a very brief format that I had prepared. Now, this happened because of certain technical glitches. I was not able to share it earlier, but I would still like to go ahead and share it with everyone, so that I believe that if we keep these certain things in mind, then obviously we'll have a lesson which is student centric, as well as student centric, as well as somewhere the teachers will be also able to use it uh, to further conduct classes based on these. So I'll try to do it. Otherwise, I can just give it what it is. Now, lesson opening, you can conduct with a recap activity involving all students using open-ended questions or other methodologies as well as you choose. Then content explanation can be done by collaborative teaching, research on projects, role play, flipped classroom method is again a great method to involve maximum number of students and ensure that most of them do get involved in the teaching process as well. Then activity time to enhance retention should be done with gamification, peer or group work, and also evaluation to check understanding, that can be activity based or inquiry based, or you can use a simple question matrix to ask questions to the students and then note down their answers. Then closure or recapitulation can be done through quiz time or exit slips, or even a simple thumbs up, thumbs down activity would suffice for the same. Then delegation of tasks to encourage learning beyond the classroom, that needs to be done. So research, resource creation, project based, and then a minute or two to delegate tasks for the next day as to what needs to be done on the next day, so that that can be done from there. And I think I am entering the studio uh, again to connect to a Wi-Fi. I'll just try to do it. Yeah. Yeah, Harsha, am I in studio now? Right. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You can share your
Just give me a
PPT,
moment.
ma'am.
I'll just try to share.
Sure, sure.
Okay, now I have my PPT open here. So let me just get this. Am I audible to you, Harsha?
Yes, ma'am. But there is a lot of sound, ma'am.
Okay, I'll just try to leave from the other
Yeah,
device
you
so
can
that.
leave from this. Yeah, from the other device. You can be on this device, ma'am, on the laptop.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Harsha. We have
No
here
problem, ma'am.
now. Now just
Need to
try
go
to
to share.
connect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can go to share. Can you go to slides? Oh no,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
don't want. Okay.
Then from
Okay.
your computer, ma'am.
Yeah, from my computer itself. But
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Very.
Should I be able to upload it?
Yes, ma'am. If you can, otherwise you
Okay,
can share the
upload
entire
from.
screen, ma'am. You can share the
Okay,
entire
great.
screen because I'll be reading out the comments for you.
Okay, fine. I'll share the entire screen then.
Yeah, yeah,
Share
yeah.
screen. Should I go to share
Yes,
screen?
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, I've shared screen, but I
Yeah.
can't see the. I can't see the
Entire
PPT
screen.
here.
I
It's
need
already.
to enable the this thing, ma'am. Your voice. That
Yeah,
audio
share
will be there,
system
no?
audio. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I've
yeah,
done
yeah,
share system audio, but it's
yeah.
still not coming. I can't still not see the PPT.
It will take some few seconds, ma'am.
Okay,
Just
great.
wait. Yeah.
Fine, fine, fine.
Is it loading, ma'am?
Yeah, seems to be loading. Just give it a moment. I don't think it's loading. I'll cancel and redo the entire thing again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you can just do the slide. This one, ma'am. Click on share. Then share the slides. Slides part is there, no?
Yeah, I'll just do as you dictate. Okay, just take me
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
Slides, then
Slides.
your computer.
Yes, yes, yes. Then it will show where you have saved on your laptop or computer.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, just click on that.
yeah. It's
It
still
takes
having
few
issues
seconds
with.
time, ma'am. Few seconds it takes.
Right, right. Yeah, let me just go to it. I can see that here. Just trying to take it over there.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I believe it's getting started. Yeah, it's getting uploaded. Just give me a moment with this.
Sure, ma'am.
Yes. No, it's still there, but I can't see it. Not visible to me. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
it's just getting started. Okay. So the PPT seems to be starting, but it's still not there completely. Is it going to take time or should I just go ahead without it?
Ma'am, let it load. You can just go ahead, ma'am.
Okay,
Let the
fine. I'll go
screen be
ahead.
there. Yeah, yeah, you can go
Right.
ahead.
Great. Now we're talking about the increased role of students. Now, how do you increase the role of students in a student-centric class, and how do you plan for it? Happens to be one of the things. So, if we keep just six things in mind, then with the use of six things, we can ensure more student participation. The first thing is assigning of projects, which is generally done on a term and basis, or only when we go ahead and we are supposed to mark students for something. This can also be done on a daily basis with very short research based projects that children can be asked to do. Then the next happens to be the flipped classroom method, wherein you can discuss with students what you are going to do the next day, so that you have them already gone through the part that you want to teach the next day. And then when they come to the class the next day, they come with a lot of questions, and all you need to do then is clear their doubts and take them forward and evaluate them on their learning. The third happens to be the collaborative teaching technique, which again is a great way to create student centric lessons. And when you do give a little bit of autonomy to the students, they really lead with example. And then you can make peer groups or create groups of fours and six and twos in class and delegate tasks to them accordingly. Then you can have more research based tasks, wherein you can delegate tasks to students, wherein you can ask them to go beyond the textbook, go outside the textbook and find out more on the topic. So the students are bringing much more to the table rather than what they are learning from the book itself. So that somewhere also gives them an opportunity to use their learning in a day-to-day life, and focuses more on skills and vocational learning rather than just the book or the textbook knowledge. Then you can assign group tasks, and at the end you can ask students to create resources and share it in the class as well. So some of these techniques will work. Obviously, the 5E model, that is engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate, also works with this. Also, the role of Bloom's taxonomy is there in a lesson plan, because somewhere Bloom's taxonomy is essential, because somewhere you are able to identify and then identify achievable learning goals and develop plans with the help of students, and then take them forward. And then you are able to go through the various steps of the Bloom's taxonomy, starting with remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and then creating, if you create lessons in the class itself. And also this can be done with the help of Gagne's 9 events of instructions, which again somewhere starts with to gain the attention of students and then inform students about the objectives of lesson. So right at the beginning of the lesson, we do, most of us go ahead, go to the class and discuss what is the learning outcome of the class. But we never go ahead and talk to students of what we are going to do tomorrow and plan accordingly. So if we do that, then taking forward, we'll be able to create a more student centric lesson plan for everybody. And I would like to end with a short poem by Francis Duggan, which says, "We keep on learning." So it is said of wonders, they never cease to grow, for to grow. The more you learn, the less you know that you know about life and what living is about. So lucky the one who has never known of self doubt. From years of living, you come to realize that discretion is a forte of the wise, and sad to say, the wise in numbers are few. And this is not saying anything that is new. On many things, you and I cannot agree. That happens with students and teachers as well. As you look on life quite differently to me, who is right or wrong is not for me to say. We just see things in quite a different way. Only know things as they were, do never stay, and we keep learning from life every day. So, my dear teachers, work on more student centric classes, involve more students in the process, and see that learning becomes flawless, and also the syllabus will get completed on time if we focus more on making our classes student centric. Now we are ready for any questions that anybody may have. Harsha?
Sure, ma'am. Your
Yes.
PPTs are not visible.
Yeah, it's not visible, but I mostly managed to take across everything that I wanted to convey. So,
Yes,
if
ma'am.
we have any questions now for the last
Yeah,
15
yeah, yeah,
minutes,
yeah. I think we
right,
need to wait for
right.
1 or 2 minutes, ma'am.
Great, great, not an issue. I'll still try to see if the PPT is getting shared.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Sure, sure.
okay.
You are not able to do like share the screen, entire screen, ma'am. Even the videos, the
No,
slides.
nothing is getting shared. I tried so many times, and yesterday it was fine. I don't know what has. Okay, I can see this here. Let me try.
One of the teachers is asking, please, can you share the for pre-primary? What would be the lesson plan? Can you please tell them the example?
Yeah,
Example.
sure. Why not? Why not? For pre-primary, what happens? The learner's level of learning is quite slow, and the children are quite small. So, what you can do is, with explicit instructions, you can take in more activities rather than giving them more ownership in the class. What you can do is, when you open a lesson, obviously you can do it with a great opening activity wherein you ensure that there is maximum involvement of students, so maximum student engagement takes place. The next part is the explanation part, wherein you can make it more inquiry based, because if you give a child a time frame of 10 minutes, it's very difficult for a child of grade 1, 2 and 3 to come ahead and speak. But if you ask a lot of questions and try to get answers from them, instead of you going ahead in a monotonous way and explaining a content, I think it becomes more student centric. So any child in grade 1, 2 and 3 will be able to give you 2, 3, 4 line answers, and then you can go ahead and explain the content that the child has just explained, so you can elaborate on it. So elaboration part can be done by the teacher rather than the explanation. So you can take in answers from students and then elaborate, and then again for the third part, you can go ahead for an activities to ensure that the learning is now reinforced with all the learners. That can be the third part, and the fourth part again can be your quiz time or your assessment, a short assessment of the students learning. So you can go ahead with say a thumbs up thumbs down activity, or something which focuses on small activities like a small yes no kind of an activity, or an MCQ kind of an activity where the children don't need to speak as much, but they're still able to give you required answers. So you can go ahead with say if it is correct, so number one is correct, so raise hands. So give them four options and try to get answers from there. so that you're checking, evaluating them somewhere, but they don't, because smaller children take a lot of time for writing, so we don't have that kind of time for an exit or a closure activity. So therein what you can go is more like a yes no kind of an activity, which can be devised by turn right for yes and turn left for no. So you are teaching them, asking, taking your assessment, and in the same way you are also teaching them of directions. So you can have interdisciplinary method in a class. That is again one of the things which is incorporated into the national education policy, where it says you should have art integrated learning, or you should have interdisciplinary learning. So you can go ahead and do this kind of assessments to have interdisciplinary classes, as well as you are taking assessment from students as well. And then obviously you should ask children what they want to learn the next day. So you can very gently you can create chits because it's a smaller class, so students will not be able to tell you what is the topic that they want to learn and how far they want to learn and what is it that they want to do. So you can prepare small chits for the topics of the next day, putting your own suggestions, and you can ask them to take a draw. So then you are involving them in the process, and then somewhere you are in control as well. So that works as a great way of moving ahead, creating a student centric class in the primary grades or the pre-primary grades as well.
Ma'am, one more question is there. What about differentiated instructions for slow learners? Plan for
Right.
them.
Right. So what happens is, when there are slow learners, you can incorporate them into small activities, make them take charge for it. Slow learners, I do understand. So the fastest the person goes is the teacher. So you involve the slow learners also in the teaching process. If you are having a segment of resource creation, so if you are delegating a group, so obviously the group should consist of varied learners who are of different levels. So one child can be there who is a slow learner, but there can be another who will act as a peer or a mentor or a buddy to take him up at par with the class. So then slowly what happens when a slow learner is incorporated or has the support of another strong learner, or a buddy system can be created. So what happens, it's easier for a slow learner as well, that he's not getting recognized as a slow learner, but somewhere he is getting facilitated, and he is able to bring his learning at par with the class, with the rest of the class. So it's a great confidence booster for slow learners as well. So if you have a student centric class, it works for everybody. All the students in the class are equally participative, and it reflects in the outcomes of the students as well. So when you have an assessment on a day-to-day basis, so when you have a formative or a summative assessment at the end of the week, or and at the end of a term, you will see the difference in the scores of the student and their learning when they are more participative in the conduction of the class. So the entire benefit can be derived if the class is made more and more student centric.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. There is one more question.
Right.
Uh, 1 second, ma'am.
Yes. Sure.
uh, mm, Meghraj Nesar, like asking for any tips or insight on encouragement for student participation. Because when students are given activities,
Right. Right.
the person has come across many a times student shying away from the activities and lacks competency too. So, what are the
Mhm.
tips or the insight for this particular thing, ma'am? Can you throw some
Okay.
light on this, ma'am?
Can you repeat the question? I just lost track for a moment there.
Any
Insights on.
tips or insight on encouragement for student participation?
Right, right, right. Absolutely. So, what happens? Students always want to be in the role of the teacher. So, what happens is you can ask them to get you ideas on what they want to conduct next. So, if the student is very participative or gets a very good resource, so let him share it. And you can also do it from one section to another section. Say for section A, there is a group of students who are very good, who excel at preparing very good lesson resources like a PPT. They have prepared very good PPT. Why don't you take those same students to another class and let them present there as well? So that acts as an encouragement as well as an appreciation. Apart from regular appreciation that a teacher can give us, like having their name displayed on the board, or you can have the resource creator of the week or something like that. So what happens, students, they are more and more participative. Once you get recognized, you are more participative and you start opening up. And it's really a great bonus for students when you take things to a different class and then you are able to do it over there. So he goes back home, and then at home also he is telling his parents that I did this in another class, so I had a different set of audience. So the confidence of the students also gets boosted a lot through these kind of activities. So take them to different classes. If somebody in grade 6 is doing great, then you can take them to some other class as well. I would do one thing is I see a lot of people asking for the PPT. So Harsha, I'll mail that over to you
Yes,
if
yes,
you
ma'am.
can share it
Yes,
with
ma'am.
others.
Sure,
Okay,
sure, sure, sure.
certainly,
And one more
certainly.
question from Mona Gupta, ma'am. Please, can
Right.
you suggest a lesson plan for a special child also who is
Mhm.
8 or 9 years old?
Okay. So for one specific child or the class as a whole?
Uh, she has asked for special child, ma'am. Special.
Okay, okay, right,
So it can
right.
be children also,
I get
ma'am.
the point. Right, I get the point. If it is there, then okay, 8 or 9 year old special child, then what you can do is you have to have a lot of tools and games, and those come in handy if you incorporate those and try to understand what is the strength of the child and what kind of learner he is. Basically, we all know that students are either visual learners, or they're auditory learners, or they are kinesthetic learners. So you need to figure out if that special child, what is his learning ability and what is his strength, and then you can build around activities which focus on his strength, and then devise a lesson plan specific for those kind of learners. I think it will have a greater one-on-one uh, session. You can have a one-on-one session with such a child, or you can accumulate such kind of learners in a class and group them, and then frame out those kind of resources which help these particular kind of students. For example, I'll just give you an example for that. Say I have a set of auditory learners whose strength is they are able to listen very carefully and they are able to understand things, but visually they are not that good. So what I do is I work on, say, music. I incorporate music into my day-to-day lesson plan, and the lesson opener is in fact a music, and then I ask them to sort out, say, suppose I'm teaching verbs in class third, and then I ask them to sort out words which are verbs as it is in the part of music. So that again acts as a great boost for those special kind of learners.
Yes, ma'am.
And there,
Uh,
and you can
just
also frame their evaluation or assessment according to their learning abilities if they are belonging to uh, a special group or special learners.
so one more like another Shilpa ma'am is asking another teacher. Should we
Right.
have a separate syllabus for special child?
Yeah, I would say if there is a group of special children, their learning ability is slow, and if it depends on the ability and the group. If they are really slow, then you need to devise something, or uh, if they are mildly slow, then they can be incorporated with the mainstream students, wherein their confidence will also get boosted and they'll be able to bring themselves at par with the other students in the class. But nowhere should you subject students if they are slow learners or any which ways. Their confidence should not get hampered. What happens is it is all about 99% motivation that works for children. More motivation and more learning takes place. If a child just acknowledges the fact that he or she is good enough and is able to do things, they'll go far and beyond their potential of learning.
Yes, ma'am. One more question more question from Manisha ma'am. How can we use the
Right.
allotted periods of lesson completion for lesson planning?
Mhm. Uh, Lesson completion, if there is an allotted period for completing of lesson, the same can be used for lesson planning. You can have a two-way interaction with the students, and according to their skill set. Maybe some students are very good in creating ppts, some students are very good in creating quizzes, some students are very good in extracting questions. So you can use their skill set, delegate tasks to them, so that your lesson is completed, as well as somewhere the child is also participating and helping you with the completion of the lesson.
Yes, ma'am. One more question, ma'am. Maybe the last one.
Right.
What about
Right.
autistic students? Any ideas, please?
I
Pushpa ma'am is asking.
Actually,
Autistic
right,
students.
Pushpa
Yeah.
ma'am, thank you so much for the question. I am not on a day-to-day contact basis with any of the autistic students, but then I do have my own understanding on autistic students. So I believe autistic students, if there are any, you need to frame special lesson plans and give them a one-on-one time every single day to help them or to bring them at par with the other students in the class. Their activity, again, as I said, has to be that some strength in those students needs to be identified, and then you need to work on those strengths in order to help them through the learning process.
Yes, ma'am. I think all the questions are covered.
Right,
Uh,
thank you.
Thank you, Meenakshi ma'am, for a very engaging and informative session for our community of teachers. I am sure that our teachers have got a lot of takeaways from this session.
Thank you so much,
Thank you
Harsha.
so
Thank
much,
you.
all the participants, for engaging with us today. To register for more such upcoming webinars, please visit My Center. Yeah. One more
And
announcement.
Harsha, if you could,
If you have,
yeah, thank you.
yes, ma'am. If
Harsha, if you
I
could
mean, once,
send,
ma'am.
yeah, I'll be
Yeah.
sharing the PPT with you so that it can be shared with everybody else.
I would like to request the participants to write to us at team@centa.org. It is already been posted on the comment section, so you can do write to us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Harsha.